so we will get going in the interest of time. Thank you all for coming. This is something new that we decided to try this year because of some uncertainties in budgets and questions and things like that. So I'm going to do the town presentation first. I'm sorry, the school presentation first, and then Dan's going to do the town after that. The school presentation is a quick snapshot of what the overall budget is, and then I'm going to get into how tax rates are calculated and what affects tax rate. Because I think that's always a major question in town, is what makes up our tax rate and how is it calculated. So with schools, we can drill it right down to the information that the state gives us at this moment in time. All right. If anybody has ever tracked tax rates in this state, they tend to change from the time that you set them in March to the time they're actually voted on in August. A lot of times that change is not significant, but you'll see in this presentation, it is likely that it's going to be a fairly significant change this year because of what's going on in education funding and things like that. So we'll get going. So some of our budget highlights to talk about what is driving our budget up this year is really salary adjustments, as well as some positions that were grant funded for the last 3 years due to ESSER funds. And those are reading specialists, some licensed mental health social workers that we have. We've had the last 3 years to vet those positions out and really determine whether or not they're valuable for our schools. And what we have determined is they're extremely valuable for our schools, especially our licensed social workers. They've been very significant in working with our kids in their mental health and ensuring that they're prepared to be educated every day. You also see healthcare costs are up 16.5%. That is significant with in a district like ours because of the number of employees that we have. Some positive highlights, the board worked long and hard on this, and we did not want to cut any programs. We believe that programs are the key to your academic success for your kids. So when we worked on this budget, that was kind of one of the pieces for us, is we were not willing to cut programs. What we did cut were vacant positions that were not educational positions. Maintenance took a hit, paraeducators, things like that. But they were vacant positions that we had already held, so a person wasn't losing their job. So our overall proposed budget this year is $9,055,038. That reflects a $912,000 increase, or 11.21%. Yes, it is significant. The vast majority is in your salaries at $557,000, and then healthcare at just under $200,000. That makes up the significant portion of the $912,000 increase. So that is your overall budget that we are proposing and asking the voters to vote on. Every year I present this, and then we get into tax rate, and I present what the tax rate is. This year I want to talk about what makes up the tax rate, and then we'll talk about what the tax rate is. So key factors in our tax rate and how it's made up. First one is your overall budget. Okay, from there, then we subtract offsetting revenues. That's our tuitions, surplus monies that the school has, or that the board has put back to the taxpayers, things like that. Then what is now called this year is an average daily membership. Used to be equalized pupil rate. We'll chat about that, which is now Act 127. I'll give you a highlight on that as well. And then your property yields, which is set by the tax commissioner. And then, of course, our common level of appraisals. And about the only thing that your school board has any say or control over is your top line, and that's your overall budget. I want to go back to this. I know it's difficult to see this in the back. But this piece here, this highlighted blue right here, this is 50% of our overall budget, and that is to direct instruction. Then we have special education, which is 10.8%, our Southwest Tech, which is our tech school, which is 2%, our student supports, our administration, our athletics, and our operations. The board has a little bit of control in this area, and that's about it. And we have a little bit of control here. But keep in mind, anything we cut from here directly affects programs. If we cut a teacher, we lose that program. This drills down into Arlington a little deeper. You can see that wages and benefits is 66.9% of our overall budget. So that is the largest portion of what we spend our money on, is our teachers, our people that run the schools every day. So Act 127, it was passed in 2022 and it came into effect this year. It was intended to level the playing field between districts by giving more weight to low-income students, ELL students, which is English language learners, and students in rural schools, because the state acknowledges that it is more expensive to educate those children. So what it has changed is it changed us from what formerly was known as an equalized pupil rate. The state would give us an equalized pupil rate, which was based on your number of students back for an average of 3 years. It was a bit of a complicated formula, but we would get that from them, to a long-term weighted average daily membership. That is what it's now. LTWADM is what we use. You'll also see, I'm sure you've all seen it in the news recently, originally there was a 5% cap on tax rates. Arlington was nowhere near that. It did not affect Arlington at all. But since they have passed H855, which removes that, and I'll talk about this in a minute, that adds some money into the ed fund, which is helping property tax yields. So Arlington's long-term weighted average daily membership is 633.55. That number is key in the calculations of our tax rate, and I'll show you that in just a minute. The other piece that we talked about was the common level appraisals. You hear this talked about a lot, CLAs and what they are and how they affect tax rate. Well, a common level appraisal helps towns in Vermont pay their fair amount of education tax. That's from the government, not from me. The CLA for each town is found through a study by the Department of Taxes, and it compares property values to the actual sale prices over the last 3 years. So you'll see here, Arlington CLAs stay fairly steady. We got a little high in here, which helps your tax rate actually. And then right around here is where the town reappraised. We got to about perfect. Perfect is 100%, or very, very close to it. But also right about here is when COVID hit, property taxes, or property values skyrocketed because homes were selling for a lot more money. But we had an appraisal done based on old numbers, which then takes your common level of appraisal and brings it lower because your property values, what they're selling for, what they're really selling for, is higher. So the CLAs help adjust education tax rates for fairness without changing property values. And yes, your taxes are directly impacted by the CLA, even though no one in this room has any control over them. So this is Arlington's CLAs over the last, since 2014. And I'm going to go over this a little more in detail. So the common level of appraisal in Arlington is here. In 2014, we were at 102.45%. We rose as high as 111.23%. FY20, we reappraised here, got to close to perfect at 99.72, and then we started to decline because sale prices of houses skyrocketed. And that's how CLAs work. Here's how it affects your tax rate. You calculate your tax rate, you get a pre-CLA tax rate, which is right here. So I will pick last year's tax rate, pre-CLA, $1.30 per 100. You calculate your CLA in there, it gives you $1.4892. Okay, go back to our highest year. Our pre-CLA tax rate was $1.70 This is where Arlington benefited from higher CLAs. It reduced your tax rate to $1.5286. So as you can see, Arlington has had very steady CLAs over the years. We've benefited from higher CLAs for many years. In these last 2 years, we have taken a bit of a hit on our CLAs. Because this CLA is at 80.16% this year, by statute, that automatically triggers a town-wide reappraisal by statute. When that's going to happen, I don't know, because there are many, many, many towns in Vermont with very low CLAs this year because of COVID. That is the problem here is, when COVID hit, everybody moved here, so property values up. Great for property owners if you're selling, not good for CLAs, not good for tax rates.
Todd, I have a question.
Yep.
I mean, COVID hit, what, in 20?
20.
And yet nothing changed until 23 with the,
Yep.
I mean, because the house was sold back then from what they're selling for now.
Yep, they go back 3 years. When the state does their calculations, they go back 3 years. So that's why you're seeing a bit of a delay. And Arlington we started our reappraisal in 20, finished up in 22, if I'm correct. Which is this is when it really comes into effect. And then, of course, the COVID residual is coming through. The next piece in all this is property tax yield. This is also set by the state. It's a rate that's set by your tax commissioner, and per the Vermont Department of Taxes, the homestead property yield is set to raise enough homestead property tax revenue for the education fund. And the income yield is usually set so that homesteads who get an income-based credit will experience the same tax change as those who pay entirely based on property value. So how the education fund works in the state of Vermont is the towns collect taxes. We send all of our tax dollars to the state, and then the state disperses it based on all these formulas to each town. That's how it works. When you pay taxes for schools, the town doesn't collect it and then disperse it to the school. It's not how it works. They collect it, they disperse it to the state, and the state disperses it based on all of their calculations. So we have our property tax yield. When we originally set all this and worked on our budget, and what you saw in your flyer that got sent to home, our property tax yield was $9,452 set by the state. That dropped from about $15,400 last year. Since then, and I mean literally within the last week, since I started this presentation, it has increased. And you're going to see that the higher the property tax yield, the lower the tax rate. And that's a good thing.
What about delinquent taxes? Is there a lot of that? Does that affect the rest of it?
It won't affect this. It won't affect
When we send
school
money to
budget.
the state, we're short, do we have to come up with it?
Sure. State wants their money. Absolutely. Yep. So this is what you saw that was sent home in your flyer. This is how we calculate tax rates. This is the form that is used. Okay? We have our expenditures, $9,055,380. We subtract our revenues. This year, $1.19472 million was our revenues. Gives us our education spending of $7,860,000. We then take our long-term weighted average daily membership, the number we talked about, 633.55, and we divide it by our education spending. That gives us our cost per long-term weighted member at $12,407.32. We then divide that number by our property yield, which was the number I showed you before, the original number, which gives us our pre-CLA tax rate. And at this point, when we did this form, was $1.3127. We then must take and adjust for our CLAs. In Arlington, it's 80.16%. So we divide that by this rate and gave us what we originally projected as our new tax rate of $1.6376. Okay? But, like I said, that has changed a little bit. Since the passing of H 850 and removing that 5% cap for districts, it has put money back into the ed fund, which then increases the property tax yield. By increasing the property tax yield, we get a pre-CLA tax rate of $1.27, and when we divide our 80% CLA, we have a proposed tax rate right now of $1.5844, which is about a 9.5% increase over last year. I would love to sit here and tell you that is what your tax rate is going to be, but I can't, because there is no doubt in my mind that that's going to change. I am very optimistic that it's likely going to go lower. The legislature is very worried about tax rates and property taxes. I'm sure you've seen that all over every news article out there. So they are trying to find ways to put money back into the ed fund. They're also waiting to see what happens at town meeting day. Because if other towns vote down their budgets and they have to lower their budget, that puts more money into the ed fund, which then increases property tax yield, which then decreases tax rates. As more money goes into the ed fund,
No, start step before that.
so as budgets go down,
Yeah, so if we fix this budget.
yep.
Okay.
Well, if you nix this budget, we have to cut the budget, to bring it back to the
Right,
floor.
that's what, okay.
Yep. So it's as towns nix their budget and then budgets go down,
Mhm.
that in turn keeps money in the ed fund. Okay? And if more money in the ed fund
Trickle down.
increases tax yields, decreases tax rates. Okay? So this is a 5-year comparison based on information that we have today. 2020, your pre-CLA tax rate was $1.70. After calculations, $1.52. 21, 22. This year's pre-CLA $1.27. And after CLA's $1.58. If our common level of appraisal was rated at 100%, your tax rate would be $1.27. That's what your tax rate would be. But with an 80% CLA, you have to calculate that. It gives us $1.58 today. Questions? Yes, sir.
So what's the process if you get this budget knocked down?
If this budget goes down, we as a board have to go back and cut. And
What's the process? So I know certain places, they put a cap of what needs to be, but what is it with you? You
we
just
have to take a guess.
Okay.
We have to take a guess.
And does it
And,
get voted on again, or?
Yep.
Okay.
yep, we'd have to have another special election, and it would get voted on again. I'm not saying this to like, beg you to vote for this, I'm giving you the reality of what it is. If we go back and we have to do this, we will have to cut people, and we will have to cut programs. There is no other ifs, ands, or buts about it. To make any substantial, meaningful cut to this budget, it has to be people, because almost 70% of the budget is.
Okay. In the beginning, you said you had those positions which were grant-funded positions. What does that mean?
So we had ESSER funds, which was basically COVID money from the federal government to give to schools to support students, faculty, et cetera, et cetera. Schools use them for various things. We used some for ventilation purposes. We went to our schools and added and changed a bunch of ventilations, things like that. One of those rounds of money that came through was for mental health and other positions like that, was to help with education where kids were lacking because they were essentially, they were learning virtual. Most towns, we were very, very good here, and we did our best to keep kids in school. But because of all this, they suffered with their mental health. We brought on 2 licensed social workers. They began working with our kids, and I can't say how valuable they are. If we had to cut, I would say that these are 2 positions we probably would not cut because they are so valuable to us.
So the money was there already.
Mhm.
Is it in the residual fund?
Nope, so the grant money has run out. They will no longer fund these positions.
So that's.
So we have to then take those positions and put them into our budget.
Right, so it's not really a grant funded position.
They were grant funded positions.
But no longer.
Correct.
Okay, because that's kind of misleading.
No, I thought, I apologize, I thought I said that.
No, you didn't.
Okay. Yep.
You said if you had to make choices, if the budget got voted down, you'd be taking guesses and people would lose their jobs. I know you can't control the cost of healthcare, but you do have some control over the $500,000 worth of salary increases, correct?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So would you start there?
Well, it's not all 500,000, the 500,000 just isn't set increases. And no, I can't take away what's been negotiated with teachers already. So some of that is those grant funded, those positions that were grant funded are now in the budget. So yes, some of that could come out.
So of that 557, how much are those positions? And then how much is just the pure year-on-year increase of the contract?
So it's public record, our teachers got a 7% increase in their pay for next, starting FY '25. So across the board, that's what they got. They were coming off about a 1% increase. Inflation was at 8-9% at the time, so that's what was negotiated with them in order to keep them. That's what we did. And I would say we were probably on par, if not lower than most districts with that increase.
Are they 100% medical?
No, 80-20. Yep, yep.
So Todd, if we have a mandated reappraisal this year, the CLA will presumably go to something like 100%. So like next year, the tax rate before CLA and the actual tax rate will probably come a lot closer together.
Yeah.
So we won't have that effect.
Yep. I
And
can,
why couldn't we have had a reappraisal last year? I've never understood that. It was at 86. We knew it was a problem, but we couldn't go ahead and do it then.
we probably could have last year, it was 87.75, but we have to pay for it, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
You know, and I know we as a town, we had chatted about that.
Yeah.
But one of the biggest problems is finding someone to do the reappraisals
Right.
right now. So right here, you can see that in 2023, we were at 99.72.
That's what I'm getting at.
PCLA tax rate,
Yeah.
OCLA tax rate within,
Yeah.
you know, tenths of a cent of each
Because
other.
the tax rate is actually 2.27 before the CLA effect.
Yes,
See, that's,
yeah, that is, and I will tell you, that is the lowest pre-CLA tax rate in 10 years.
yeah, yeah. Which is very fortunate, given the CLA problem, but it means that we can deal with the CLA problem, you know, we might be in a much better position.
Yeah. I go-
There's really no wiggle room at all in this because you got the contracts.
Mhm.
I understand that the fringe is basically set by the state. Is that true?
Healthcare is 100% set by the state.
Pension,
Yep,
which are your bigger items.
yep.
So you really don't have anything. Now, for all of you guys here, is there any redundancies in admin staff?
Redundancies?
Yeah,
No.
I saw you had a treasurer's line in your school budget. They're probably got a treasurer's line too.
We have to pay a portion of the treasurer's. The school is mandated by statute to pay a portion of the treasurer's salary. Because we use.
So that basically, it is a
Yeah.
synergy.
I mean, the school board literally has, people think we have a tremendous amount of control over the budget. We really don't. Because here's the thing, like you tell us, hey, we need to cut staff members. I can't cut English, I can't cut math, I can't cut science. You know? There's so many, because we're mandated to have them. We're mandated to teach those subjects. So we get down into what can we cut and still meet what we're mandated, which is getting slimmer and slimmer.
Instead of having to cut teachers, I know in my district, district, you know, they looked at where the dual certifications were.
Mhm.
And, you know, we picked up an extra period, we
Yep.
paid a stipend, which did not affect
Mhm.
any of our, you know, pension or anything else. Is that something that we would consider and actually look at? Because there's administrators that probably have,
Yep.
or other people who have dual certifications that could
Yep.
pick up an extra period instead of losing a teacher or
We would, losing a teacher,
Or lose the-
whatever.
yeah, no matter, I mean, we would always offer a subject or a program, and I'm only gonna, I'll use PE for example, and this is just an example. We have a PE teacher at the elementary school, we have a PE teacher at the high school. We could cut one PE teacher and go to, but our offerings are going to be slimmed way down. So now that PE teacher is going to be teaching 450 kids PE as opposed to 50-50. So there are ways that we can come up with that, which we would have to, right? Just not the perfect or ideal setting for us, for sure. Other questions? Yes, sir.
My question is not so much a question. It's not so much what's in the budget, it's what's not in the budget. And what's not in the budget is the marketing that we once had proposed to market our school to other communities. Recognizing now we get 14 or 15 kids from Sandgate, 6 from Sunderland, 2 from Manchester in the secondary school. It's about 22. Why isn't that 3 times that?
We still have
No,
some.
let me just finish. And I'm looking at your letter. There's plenty to be proud of. We're the top of any challenge. We have tremendous success. We continue to achieve great things, and goes on and on, all these wonderful things about our school. Why is that? We're just keeping it here when several years ago, I mean more than several years ago, we knew we were going to have a decrease in volume of children, right? And when we went from 600 and something down to where we are today. And we knew we had to do marketing. And when we did the renewal project, we talked about it as well. Why aren't we just really out there promoting our school to other communities to get the children to come down here?
So I can tell you that we are doing some of that. Missy, who actually did that whole thing for you, she kind of leads our charge on that. Just as COVID hit, we had a full marketing committee that was meeting, and we started to do outreach at other schools. I will tell you that we hit some roadblocks because not every school wants Arlington in it, because they have other schools that they would rather their children go to, mostly to the north of us, let's say that. So that is our target audience, right? Because anything south of us, we get $0 for. So we market what we can to the north. Since we've done that, we've actually pulled in kids. This is actually the highest revenue we've had in a long time. Our revenue is usually around about 750,000, 800,000. We're at almost 1.2 this year. So we're still getting Sandgate kids. We're still getting some students from Sunderland. We're actually getting a few from Dorset. So we're starting to trickle them in. But also keep in mind, as you know, we're up against a significant, a school with a significant budget. That's much more than ours. You know, their endowments are 4 times the amount of our budget. So you're marketing against them, it makes it difficult, but we are still trying to do that. If there is a school north of us that allows us to go in, we go in every year and try to convince those kids to come to Arlington. We slowed during COVID. This board talked about it during our meetings to bring back that subcommittee and start driving ahead on that again to boost those revenues. even more.
Does that school from the north come into our community?
Sure, absolutely.
So they're drawing out from our community. Are we as aggressive as they are?
If a school won't let Arlington in their door, like an elementary school or a middle school, won't even let Arlington in the door to talk to their kids, it's tough to get that message.
think I'm more concerned about the students we're losing, because we've lost a lot of kids that are going north. And I think we need to focus a lot more on who's here, get them wanting to be here. And I think culture has a lot to do with it, and I think that's something as a board and the community we need to work on is the culture of the school.
My son's in 8th grade, he's asked to go to Vernon next year, and I asked him why. This is because all his friends are leaving.
Yep.
When they have school choice. Have you looked into finding out why these kids want to leave?
Me personally, no, I have not. I mean, I'm a board member.
No, I know, but I'm saying, why did, that's my question.
Yeah.
Why do these kids want to leave?
Yeah, but I will tell you this, we have asked kids in the past, if you want to have this conversation, we have asked kids, I've gone to parents and said, okay, why did you choose Fernwood? And you know what, I always get the opportunities. So then I ask, what are those opportunities? Tell me what those opportunities are, and I will do everything in my power to go to the board and see if we can provide those same opportunities. Not one parent yet has been able to identify what those opportunities are. Now, I can, some of them.
I know one is the
You-
bass fishing class.
Yeah. We can't offer bass fishing. I can't offer lacrosse. We can't offer football. Like, if kids are leaving for those sports, we can't combat that as a school. If you wanted those sports, that budget would be double.
So is it not the same way where you can still do those?
Yeah.
I thought you could.
Yeah, we have numbered members still.
Okay.
Yeah. They still can. But
Yeah.
Kevin, your kid's a star football player. What do you think that school's going to do to pull your kid there?
Yep.
They have full teams that work on this. We can't afford that.
Yep.
We're a public school. We try to do what we can to market those kids, to pull them here, to keep them here. But it's no secret. I mean, it was all over the paper. Their endowment is 3 times what our budget is. That's just their endowment. I'm talking, let alone their budget. They're building sports complexes, and we have a field. But that's, and that's not a knock on us. For a public school, I think we offer tremendous amounts of things. Which is reflected here. There's no doubt. Okay, but that's why we are a good, small school that provides quality education and lots of opportunities for our kids. And these kids are successful in what they're doing. And that's where, for me, that's what I'm most proud of. Is there always room to do better? Absolutely, no question about it. There's always room to do better. Yep.
Okay, so I'm looking at the enrollment on your thing, and it's kind of scary as you get down lower. Is the model you're using with the upcoming enrollment a sustainable model? I mean, or is it going to be costing more and more to teach less and less?
No, I mean, if our enrollment starts to drop, then there's no doubt we have to drop teachers, which we have done in the past. At one
It's
point,
scary when you look at the numbers.
Let me tell you, at one point we got down to about 365 students. Okay, we had 1 art teacher, we had 1 PE teacher, 1 music teacher. We adjusted based on the number of students we had. As our enrollment started to climb and increase, we adjusted the number of teachers we had over the years. We've ebbed and flowed as our population has changed. We continuously hope population is going up, in Arlington, our student numbers. We have seen that. Since my time on the board, we're as low as 362, I think, and we're getting up there. I think we graduated our smallest class last year. I have to sign diplomas on Monday. There's 46 diplomas I'm signing. So there were 14 last year. So it's an ebb and flow. It changes all the time, and we have to adjust all the time. What this budget is for what we're currently at.
How does that factor into the budget or into the numbers here?
Nothing.
Nothing. So that's off the charts.
Yeah,
You don't have.
we get nothing for
No
them.
subsidies
Nope.
or anything for them.
No, the only thing would be is if a student came here for some classes, then they would be counted in our ADM.
Thanks.
What about homeschools that play sports? I've had some that play sports.
Yep.
Do we get anything for that?
No. The school's not required, we just do it because we think it's good for the kids. You know, there's also, like, school's not required to do a lot of things, like, we accept 18 students from the south. I think this year's 13 and 14, maybe 15 this year. So, you're required to have a school choice agreement, you're required to open your doors up. We get, this year we had 15 students from Mount Acton that attend our active. We get $0 for those kids. The theory the state says is that for every kid that you receive, you'll send one, right? That's not the case. We send one.
Does that help our ADM though?
It does not,
It does not?
because Mount Acton still gets credit for them, Mount Acton still gets money for them, we educate them.
That doesn't.
No, well, here's the thing, we as a board can say we're not gonna do that. But we as a board have always said, if that is what's best for those kids, then this is where those kids belong, period. Because, and I've always said, like, we send a kid down there, people ask why. Hey, sometimes a bigger school's a better setting for that student. Sometimes the smaller school's a better setting for these students. We're gonna do what's right by the kids no matter what.
Now, with school choice, like if my son decided to go to Bernburg, does the town, I know Bernburg's what, $28,000 a year per student? Does the town Arlington put that bill, or town Sunderland?
Sunderland don't. Arlington, you don't have school choice.
Sunderland's part of VRSU, and after the elementary, they have school choice, because the only Sunderland school is the
I
elementary.
thought after ninth grade, everyone had school choice.
Only
No.
within VRSU, that
No.
does not include Arlington.
Arlington residents don't have school choice. If they choose to go elsewhere, they must pay tuition or get a scholarship, which is really what is happening. You know, our accelerated students that leave here aren't paying tuition, they're getting scholarships. So it's a game, but we're not going to win, but we'll continue to fight. What else?
I'm going to ask one more question about the, I don't want to leave this enrollment thing without asking the same question. I know the school board works on the, the day-to-day issues that you have to work with. But this enrollment issue is a structural problem, if you want to use that term. Meaning, it's been with us now for about a good 10 years. I know we had it when we redid the high school 10 years ago, 15 years ago. We had to do the study, and we knew the population was going to go down. We have about 415 on the enrollment sheet that you're showing in the report here. 40 or 50 are the children that go to pre-K, which we never calculated years ago. And now you mentioned 15 come up here from Bennington. Does Arlington have a problem in the community of Arlington, not having enough homes with children in them?
Arlington has a problem not having enough homes, period.
Okay, let's hold on that's just a minute. But from where we were years ago, with many of the homes, and looking around here, had children, including our own, we had children in our home. But now we're quote empty nesters. Do we have a structural problem in town where we're not going to increase the population unless something major happens, major housing or?
There's a structural problem in the entire state, period. There are families that want to move to Arlington. I know many. They love our school system, they want to come here, they want their kids to live here. But they can't find homes. They can't afford homes. You look at homes in the town of Arlington, the cheapest home in the town of Arlington is probably $350,000. I mean, 350? I mean, you know what it takes for an annual income to purchase that. And people don't make that here. So, yeah, we need housing stock. If there's housing stock here, likely affordable housing stock, likely families move here. But that's a problem I've worked on that, I continue to work on that, but as a school board member, I can't solve that. So yes, to answer your question, we do have a structural problem. But I'm also going to throw one more thing at you. When I went to school here in the 90s, how many private schools were in the county of Bennington? 0. Zero. And that's when we were at our highest capacity of over 500
We
students.
had Long Trail back then.
That was this small.
Oh,
Now it's 300 students. Maple Street, Island Hall, I can go on and on and on. There are probably in the neighborhood of a dozen private schools now in Bennington County that we're all competing with. You know, so that draws students. It draws students from you. So I actually challenge the state and say this is a state problem, because the more schools you have, you're fighting for the same population of students. And that money is also following those students, even in private schools, as we all know. That's been a bone of contention over the last year. The state didn't want the money to follow them. But we also know, let's be real, those schools have money. Those schools can lobby and fight for those laws and changes. We don't get in that fight. We do our best to operate our schools with what we have. We continue to try to pull in more students to increase our revenues. Continue to try to keep our students here the best that we can. But, we have a lot of opposing things out there that are challenging us, for sure. Yeah.
I went to Sunderland and we played sports in Arlington, and our only options were either Long Trail BBA or Arlington when I was there at 6th grade. Now they're mandated to go to either MEMS, Floodbrook, or Dorset for 7th and 8th grade, and let's be real, 7th and 8th grade is a miserable time in life. They're not coming here in 9th grade because they've made their friends. But like when I was there, we played sports with Arlington because they were the only ones that welcomed us in. Like Manchester didn't reach out to have us come play with them. So like I grew my friends here. So you got most of those Sunderland kids that are no longer coming because they're in the Taconic and Green School District now. And I coach a lot of them, and those parents wish. Like I have numerous kids from Sunderland that I've coached many seasons now that are like, we don't have, I mean, they could, like the grants and like everything, but then we're not getting that money until they're in 9th grade, technically.
And I don't think that wasn't done on purpose.
It totally was done on purpose. But when Sunderland lowered GRAC 46, I don't think Sunderland understood that their kids were actually losing school choice and they would not be able to come to Arlington. And I think that's actually a tragedy.
I moved my family out of there 4 years, 5 years, 7 years ago now, 4 years ago. Long time ago.
Any other questions? Anything else I can answer?
I have one comment,
Yep.
before you go. There was a question by someone over on that side early on about the tax process, collection and disbursement. And I just want to note, it's a little bit interesting. It's probably over 100 years old, but the way the state of Vermont works is the schools get the first tax dollars. So if we're short, it's the town side that takes it in the shorts. So all of the money that comes in until the school's budget is satisfied goes to the school, period. If there's a shortfall, it's up to the town to suck it up.
So the delinquent taxes are on the town,
Correct.
not the school.
The school never suffers from
They
delinquent
don't have
tax
delinquent
shortages.
taxes.
But that's an ancient statute. It's just a little, kind of an interesting thing that years and years and years ago, probably 100 years ago, 1920, that was instituted to protect students' school budgets.
Thank you all. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Doug.
Thank you, Todd. That was very good. So I'm Dan Harvey, I'm the chair of the select board, and Todd is my vice chair, very, very competent individual, as you can see. We're going to there's a very short slideshow. We're going to just give you the highlights of what the budget is for the town, and we'll go from there. How do I advance the slides on that?
Arrow.
Just the arrow, I think, Dan.
Arrow.
Yep.
Right, okay. So this is the budget summary that's in the town report. Number for number, item for item. So you look in the left-hand column under 23, what we've done is divide it by general category within the town's budget, by highway, by fire, by cemetery, park, etc. General admin is everything else. Town listers, town clerk, town treasurer, all of that is in under admin. So it compares across the budget from 2023 budget, 2023 actual, what the property tax is for each category, and then the 24 budget, that's this year's, and how much of each of the total budget funds each of those categories. So the total budget for 2024 is $1,947,241. The asterisk indicates, there's two articles, and we'll cover those in the future slide, but there's two articles that equal exactly $100,000 to be put in if approved. So that's the total. So if those are approved, that goes up to just over 2 million. Okay, and that's not accounting for anything other than the budget. This is just the raw budget, okay? So what that translates to, Todd described the whole CLA thing, and we're going to touch on that a little bit, but it doesn't affect our budget as much as it does the schools, because it doesn't determine how the tax dollars are spent. It just brings them back. So the approximate tax rate will decrease 16% in this budget, even though the budget's going up, and there's several reasons for that. What drives that is the mild winter of the beginning of 23 and the end of 23. We never know. We have to budget for overtime and road cleaning and the whole thing. Normal year, you'd have about 13 storm events that have to be dealt with. It's been significantly less than that, so we've saved money in that area. Increase in the delinquent taxes, it hadn't been done for 2 or 3 years, and a huge portion of them have come in, and we have very little right now that is outstanding. Beginning in August, when we realized we had an issue, we strategically stopped spending in certain areas that were not necessary to keep level of services where they needed to be. So we just very, at our discretion, kind of kept those things under wraps until we figured out what we were dealing with. So the non-tax revenues are going to be higher than expected this year. And that'll be on another slide in the amount that we're expecting. Under the budget, we under budgeted on the household hazardous waste facility, which is now a permanent facility in Bennington. So it's actually cheaper to do it. There's a website, and you can go on and set up an appointment and go whenever they're open and dispose of your stuff. It's not 2 weekends a year, and if you miss the weekend or you have something else going on, you got to wait a whole 6 months or a whole year. So that whole facility and the operation thereof came in way under budget. So that's a good part of it. So combined, all of this leads to a well above average year end of cash on hand, and I'll show you what that is. So on all of this stuff that we're going to be covering is validated. We had in December, and actually got the final product in early January. The outside audit, which covers 3 years, came in and validated everything in this budget. So underlying the total net expenditure increase is about 95%. Now the numbers below are just areas that have led to that, but the numbers on the left do not total the 95% because of some different anticipated income and different non-tax revenues. So $22,000 in non-tax revenues, there's a savings. Some of the funds that we have gain interest, and the interest rates are up, so the earnings on those are up. The rescue squad, while it's not a town appropriation, it is on the appropriations. It is an outside appropriation, but they petitioned to increase their ask by $16,500 to $61,500. It's not a transposing of the numbers there. That's what they are asking for. Last year it was $45,000, so they asked for a significant increase because of their financial situation. So they petitioned it. We have longstanding policy where if you want an increase, you got to petition the correct number of citizens, and I think that's like 120 signatures or something along those lines. But they have to go out and do that if they want an increase. If they want a level fund from the previous year, we just put it on the ballot, same as it was. But and that's just to kind of give you guys the option to vote. So the total expenditures that are going to be voted on in appropriations, these are the two articles that I was saying, Article 9 and 10, $65,000 to in highway surplus to the capital reserve funds for resurfacing, and $35,000 of the highway fund to replace or repair town trucks. So that'll go into the capital reserve sinking fund. So on the summary table, the budget to be voted from the floor, and that's where the appropriations come in. The total appropriations are $438,900, and that includes all capital reserve funds plus all outside funding requests for any of the nonprofits that have all requested monies from the town. So the budget to be voted on the floor, excluding the appropriations, which are balloted, is $1.608 million. Major projects that we are just kind of updating you on, things that we're working on or things that have been done this year. The Benedict Bridge crossing is under 80% funding study that will allow us to qualify for state and federal spending, not allowed under ARPA. So this is a separate source of money that we will be doing for that. The state came in and deemed the abutments probably.
Need anything specific.
Yeah, they're
paying for the study.
They're paying for the study, and we're doing 80%, and we pay 20, the state pays 80. Wastewater study, which is about halfway done, is studying how we deal with wastewater in the town, and there's not a big centralized system that is available, so we're looking at various areas and various solutions through the villages, centers and stuff, and that will dovetail with the housing relaxing of the zoning restrictions so that there can be hopefully more affordable housing in the town centers. So the zoning rewrite is what allowed that, and that was completed this year. The wastewater, the water compliance system and re-permitting, that was working on it this year, and the re-permitting work will be done in 2024. The Firehouse Committee began in the fall of 2023, and that is an ongoing subcommittee product that we're working on, and they'll be doing a study, and the firemen will be figuring out what they really need in that. So that's we're kind of at the very beginning of that. And then the Bennington County Solid Waste Advisory Committee led the hazardous waste facility opening this last summer, and that's the major projects that we've done. So that's the gist of the budget. Does anybody? I'm going to go back to the summary slide. If anybody has any questions, feel free. Now's your chance.
When you say you were talking about the permits, changing the permit process and all that, make it easier?
Yeah.
You said?
Yes, for zoning.
Okay.
Yeah, we had a rewrite on the zoning.
Right, so you can't change them anyway.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch part of that.
The water stuff, like the sewer and the well and all that is state mandated, right? You can't.
The sewer is, yes. The water is, it goes through the town water system.
So speaking to the water spending on this, the compliance work that's on that slide that says all of the major projects. So to allow more people to build housing in town, which is mandated in the law from Act 47 last year, that allows a duplex on every single-family home lot in the state. That was part of the law. And if you have water capacity or sewer capacity to do it, is the other part of that coin. So by allowing there to be more connections to our water system, that could allow some of these people who might have a secondary unit on their property to add a secondary, or who might want a secondary unit for, say, a family member, to add a secondary unit. So we had to go in and do and implement that Act 47 work, but to actually get any housing out of it, we can maximize the value of this water system and support the water system's long-term life by allowing it to grow its user base. And that user base can only grow if it gets some engineering work done to do some compliance work. So that's what we're getting at with that we have a water system. If we want to maximize the value of the water system, we need to figure out some kinks in the water system and some compliance work with that.
But you have to get a permit from the state, right?
Yeah, if you want to draw groundwater, you have to get a permit from the state. If you want to connect to the water system, if we didn't have this, you would simply be talking to us and say, I want to connect to the water system.
And if you want to get a septic, you have to get permission from the
Correct.
state.
But whereas we might, if we had a town sewer system that you might be able to connect to a sewer system. You're still going to have to check to make sure there's capacity or something like that. But that's a conversation for the future. But what we're doing right now is studying it to see what we can do and see what our options are. Nothing has been built, nothing has been decided, but certainly we want to know if people's septics fail en masse, what can we do collectively to treat that sewage so we're not polluting our lands, polluting our grounds, and so that these houses don't fall out of use.
But the zoning has been relaxed somewhat already.
Yes.
It's just that the infrastructure is not there to support a big increase in density. You could
Right.
certainly have mother-in-law apartments and other things if you have septic capacity, if you're already on the water, but without other changes, it's hard to see a big increase in housing, and that's one of the issues.
A good way to look at this is a lot of this stuff that we're talking about is laying the groundwork for future growth, and future growth in population, future growth in the grand list, et cetera. But we're in very preliminary stages of that, laying the groundwork for that stuff to happen. The zoning is just one little part of that.
Dan, can you go to the next slide? I think that's where...
That one?
Talking about different things, the reasons why. How much
This one?
extra... No,
No?
the previous one, yeah.
Okay.
How much extra, because back in the summer, the select board issued a letter that says, you know, hey, this, and this, your taxes are going to be increasing higher than normal. How much extra money was collected because of that miscalculation? I'll put it that way.
It wasn't collected because of the taxes. It was collected because of the delinquent taxes was a big chunk of it.
No. If I remember, the select board issued a letter that says.
Well, that was when we set the tax rate you're talking
The tax
about.
rate, so we
At
had.
14.7%.
We had an
We're trying
increase.
to make up for the shortfall. I don't remember the exact figure, but as it turns out, we like overcorrected because now we have the surplus and we're giving a lot of it back. But I don't have the exact figure in my head.
Okay, because I'm looking at
The tax rate went up 14.7%.
That's not what he's asking.
Okay.
How much did we?
Money.
Yeah.
Cash is king in this
Yeah,
game.
I mean, I don't remember, Nick, what was the amount of the number that was counted twice, or the subtraction that was counted?
I really wouldn't be comfortable throwing a number out there without actually being able to look at this.
I think we should be able to come up with that, but I don't have enough.
We can find it.
We can definitely come up with it, but not
The
right now.
second bullet on there says, increase delinquent tax collection. As I look at page 66, at the end there, it says delinquent taxes was $229,885. At December of this year was $200,412. To me, that's not, the delinquent taxes got decreased, but not, I don't think, an enormous amount of money to be, to put up there. Personal opinion, but I'm just saying, I think there's a lot of other things going on, within here, that doesn't that needs to, that's driving this.
Those are your major drivers. It goes up, the net expenditure increase was
I think if you're going to be
95,000.
showing this, I think you need to show some other information, and that's what I'm trying to put into the back of my brain, how I prepare a budget when I go in front of the House Appropriations, Senate Appropriations, committees of the state, how I present information so they can say, we understand it. Outside of getting the email we got this morning that says, can you reduce your budget more, even though I had it reduced by finance and management by $5.8 million. Can you reduce more? No, I'm coming back for budget adjustment next year, folks.
We will have to get back to you on that. Any other questions?
Will the
Yes.
reports mailed out to families that pay taxes, or do we have?
You mean the book?
Yeah.
There's cards were mailed out to everybody, and the reports are available at Town Hall, or they can be mailed to you on request. And we did that several years ago. We started doing that just because 90% of them ended up in the dumps and the garbage can at the post office. So, but that way, anybody that wants one, they're in the foyer. The foyer's always unlocked. You can go in and grab one. They refill those periodically, so they're right inside those two front doors in the front of the town hall.
Just that it's still not on the website. This report is not on the town's website as of right now.
Okay.
Just to.
I'll check with Robin.
If you're bringing people
Normally,
to there.
I'll
make
check
sure-
with Robin. Normally, she
Yeah.
puts it on there, so.
Yeah.
It was sent to her at some point, but I can make sure, if it's not up, I'll get it up tomorrow morning. And we'll make sure that it's up there.
Any other questions? Yes, Don.
Are you encouraging, I noticed on one of the slides, you had the a fire company looking at a possible expansion
Right there?
study for a new facility, I gather?
Yep.
Are you as a board encouraging them to also look at what's going on over in the other eastern part of the state about the possibility of regionalizing? To do it
There's been some very casual discussions about that, but there's been casual discussions about that, but I don't know that there's any concerted effort at this point. But there have been discussions up and down Bennington County about doing that. And I'm not sure what the appetite for it is.
Well, I'll just say that the members of the committee, one of the nice things about our kind of designated firehouse site is that it suits very well for both a town and a regionalized model. So whatever happens, we don't have to decide that necessarily this moment, but we can live rest assured that that site is a very good site, whether it's just the Arlington Fire Department, whether it's the North Shire Fire Department, or it's the Bennington County Fire Department. So we have a great site, it's on a great state highway, and it's the right size. So the committee's really excited about that.
And that's by virtue of our location. We're centrally located in the county. It's just kind of something to take advantage of if we can.
Well, is this long-term planning?
Oh, yeah, very, very, very preliminary. Yes, Steve?
I'll go say, since it's the first bullet on there, what is the update on the crossing bridge?
Steve, I can send you the percentages by the lines, but it's still kind of going very slowly.
Okay.
According to our general contractor.
Okay, that's why, because I think other people in town maybe, because it's been going on a couple of years now, what the heck is going on, blah, blah, blah. Just so if you have the latest to address that in front of the audience there.
Yeah, we'll grab the latest percentages.
And Nick, we've saved a certain amount of money for this project, so if we can get the results of the study, choose the path that we want to take, we will be in a position to move forward, you know. But so we've been saving for it. It's just very frustrating. All the engineers in the state are flat out and they're just taking forever to do anything.
And I will say, yeah, if we get, so this bridge is the 7th highest rated bridge of priority in the county. That lines it very well up for state and federal money under the IIJA and things like that. It is likely to secure a grant with this study done. With a max size state grant on this, which is about $200,000 for structures, and the savings that we have, we're good to go. We can build that in 1 year, supposing this study is done and we secure that structures grant that it is likely to get because of how highly it scores. So we're very excited to hopefully get out of this bridge for only paying for 20% of the entire thing, which would be awesome, and save taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars.
It's just, I think people are frustrated over bureaucracy.
Us
When
included,
it took them 4 months to award this grant, yeah.
us included, believe me.
Are you planning on making that bridge higher than it was,
Higher off the water, you mean?
above the water?
I'm not sure what the design will be.
They have to check the structural status of the abutments first, and I don't know what the engineering is. They may be able to keep them, they may have to raise it, but that you're actually getting at a really good point that is kind of right at a crux of, do we have to raise it even? We might have to raise it, and we might be faced with a larger project than we expect, but raising it would be a really big question, and we're glad we have a crack team of engineers on this.
Because those bridges were designed so that when the river really comes up, it just goes around and over the bridge. It doesn't, you're not pretending that hole is big enough for the whole river. So that's how it was designed. I mean, that's what happens in the floods. It goes around and cuts the access road. It doesn't, you're not pretending it's big enough. And if they say it has to be big enough, it has to be like the West Mountain Bridge or the Holly Bridge, that's a whole other kettle of fish. So we wanted to just put in a 1-lane replacement on the same abutment that will last for 100 years.
Yep.
And I still want to do that. But if the abutments won't serve, then we'll have to think.
I just hope they don't decide to put it as a toll bridge.
A toll bridge.
I get the math, there's no way to make the math work.
I know I do a lot of work with the state,
Yeah,
and you can't do anything to the bridge that you had before. It all
Oh, I know.
has to be higher
I
than the
know.
forestry department. We're getting these torrential storms now,
Yep.
it's twice as much water. They got a new figure to figure how much water comes through there.
I don't see, I mean, yeah, but I mean, you have a historic structure that's been that way for almost 100 years. The water's just gonna go around. I mean, that's the way the covered bridges work, the water goes around. We don't try to.
They've got it there.
Oh, yeah, I mean, the bridges, they get flooded, but you're not pretending to make it big enough. But we'll see what they say,
Well, if a big tree comes down or hits it,
Yeah.
it's probably going to take it out.
Well, I watched the big tree hit it during the July storms and it survived somehow. But we might get another flood that's bigger than the July storms.
Yeah, well, it came through tropical storm Irene, and so did the covered bridge, and things hit it, we just repair it.
for sure. Any other questions related to the budget?
I just want to thank you guys, I guess, select board there. I mean, I've been listening to meetings and go back 4 or 5 meetings ago, and Steve was there and everybody. We were going to take that excess 400 and whatever thousand, and you're going to put it into sinking funds or something like that. But now you've given it back to the town. You weren't going to do that. In fact, the meetings you were talking about not doing that.
Interestingly
You said
enough.
Next year, the rate would really increase.
Well, yeah, but,
Correct?
correct, but that's not what we did. And it was never a question of putting it in sinking funds, because our sinking funds, according to the audit, are in really good shape. They're at about 1.9 million in the capital reserve funds across all funds. And that's, even with the fairly recent purchases of equipment, our sinking funds are still in really good shape. And I don't know if I can quote him exactly, but the auditor, Mr. Smith, said that compared to other towns your size, you're way ahead of them in that category. And so, the town I've been on the board a long time. The time that I've been on the board, the town has always supported the capital reserve funds, formerly known as sinking funds, for any town equipment. I've never seen anything that didn't support that. So it's to the credit of the citizens that they plan ahead for that, and that's not an insignificant chunk of change. That's almost the size of our annual budget that is set aside in capital reserve funds. So
That's not what you were talking about. You were talking about how we're using that surplus.
Correct, you were going to use it different,
Well,
but you didn't. You were one saying, let's give it back to the people.
And we didn't give
Right.
all of it back. Put
we
some
gave
of it
all but
in
100,000 back.
We used some of it
Yep.
for important things, but I think we gave about half of it back. I don't know.
Well, I'm
More than-
sorry,
more than
you
that.
have to give it back.
Well, we should, because we raised it
Yeah.
last year, and we're very aware of it. So we're trying to offset that, and maybe we kind of end up about where we would have been.
That's all I'm saying,
if we
I'm
had-
thinking
yes.
that we're doing it, that's all,
Yes.
that's why I'm.
Well, I felt very strongly about it.
And you might also note that we did raise the fire truck sinking fund up this year with unanimously. It wasn't even hardly a discussion. But it was, Mike came in and made a request, and we were like, yeah, makes sense.
But
So-
still, like you say, the sinking funds are in good shape.
I said overall.
Overall, 2027. 2027 will be the next purchase of our next fire truck.
Yep.
We're at about a $300,000 to $400,000 shortfall. So the fire truck sinking fund is not going to be in good shape for
Yeah.
2027 to purchase a new truck.
Right.
It would be short.
It's always catch up.
I'm also happy to share my 50-year fire truck plan with anyone who wants to look at it, but like,
Well, the fire department would love to see it.
yeah, no, I would love, I'd love to sit down with you at some point, because this is something that I'm not a fire truck cost whisperer, and you fire guys certainly are a little bit more in touch with those costs, what we're gonna need in the future. So the fire truck costs have been kind of all over the place right now, so it's probably the biggest capital planning challenge that we have, is figuring out what fire truck is gonna cost at the end of the current useful life of the fire truck.
Yeah, but I think the key thing that the auditor was talking about is because we have the capital reserve funds, whenever we have to buy something, we're in so much better shape. We might have to borrow for some of it, but it's gonna be a lot less than if we weren't sinking. If we didn't have the savings, we would have to lease it, or we would have to borrow to buy it. So this is incredible strength that the town has developed, even when they're not where they should be. It's so much better than if we weren't doing it.
Right,
And-
to be attached to that meeting with the
Yeah.
full $100,000
Yeah.
extra,
Yeah.
one of the selectmen, I can't remember exactly who it was, said, well, maybe this is a good year to put an extra $100,000 into the sinking fund or
That's what I'm
something.
talking about.
Yeah, I know, but see, I felt very strongly that we needed to give a lot of it back to the taxpayers, because we had to raise the taxes to make up for it. So let's see how it goes in the future. I think we may be short when we get to the next fire truck. And then we'll have to borrow it, we'll have to stretch it out, we'll have to put the sinking fund in there. But I think it would have been disproportional to put 100,000 in that sinking fund this year. I couldn't have supported that. But we'll be talking about it in the future.
Because I know, you just look at budgets, I don't know, maybe Steve has a number better in his head, but every year, you have to increase the budget every year. You have to increase line items every year, you have to increase highway fund, everything has to have a certain percentage of increase every year. The truck sinking fund, and I can't talk about greater sinking funds because I don't pay enough attention to those, they sat stale for years. They didn't get a percentage increase in 2019, 2020 and stuff like that. They sat
I can
stale.
prove to you that that's not correct. We've always incrementally raised them. Might sit flat for 4 or 5 years, but we've always incrementally increased those. And we've increased the amount of our projected next purchase as well. So those, in that 50-year plan out that he has, when if you have an inflation rate on a truck and they've gone up dramatically. The last truck you guys bought took 2 years to get it delivered. And that's what saved our asses, was that extra 2 years. But, it was just, we were $125,000 short for that fire truck. But the fact that we couldn't get one delivered on time, it was all the supply chain stuff. But that's what allowed us to accumulate enough money to do that. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to happen again. It could, but I doubt it, so we have to make a different plan probably to cover that. But that will get done.
Yeah, the cost of fire trucks has gone up drastically, like, I don't know, you know,
It's gone off the
I look
charts.
forward to readjusting this next year, and this is something that I think, of all the sinking funds, this is the one that we're gonna have to really pay a lot of close attention to every single year with the budget, making sure that we're not gonna get to 2040 and 3 of our trucks are at the end of their useful life, and who wants to be a taxpayer in this town then? And we want to make sure that never ever happens to us, that we're systematically planning, catching this early, that these select boards in the past, if they have been able to predict where fire trucks were going to be, now they might have increased the sinking funds $15,000 a year 10 years ago, and we'd have another $150,000 in the bank.
well, the fire department's not trying.
Of course. And we can't change the select board's decisions of the past and the voters' decisions of the past, but ultimately we can look forward and be sure that we're looking at them every year and making sure those numbers are right.
But the inflation rates were not what they are now in the past.
No,
And I
no.
think that's the overall inflation rate and then the inflation rate specifically for fire trucks. So it's always a balancing act.
Yeah, and a lot of what drove the prices of fire trucks was regulation too, not just inflation. There was congressional acts that
Well, there's a
required certain
$40,000
things.
increase on emissions
Oh,
this year.
of course, of course.
Just for emissions, on every cab and chassis, is a $40,000 increase. And just as, you know, like I talked to truck salesmen, they said, we purchased truck 76 in 2014, $350,000 truck. Shasbury buying one identical to it. Now in 2024, $700,000 truck.
And it's hard to plan for those kind of increases.
It is hard to plan.
Yeah, so, but we've done fairly well. Is it going to be perfect? No. On that 50-year plan out, there's things in year 20 we have no way of knowing. So we have to, the important year is that first year, because it's dead on that. And as the further you go this way, and it's a moving window, further you go to out on that scale, the less reliable it is, but you readjust it every year as you go. And that's all we can do.
Well, there's other, I mean, we'll talk about this later.
Yeah.
There's other key factors. The quality of things made today are not there. Fire trucks don't last 30 years anymore.
Right.
I mean, that's something else we have to think about at that time.
Yep. Did you have a question, Don?
Well, for you and Todd, by doing this tonight, does that mean on Monday night, this will not have to be presented?
No, we're going to present it to the bigger
Same way on
crowd,
Monday night?
pretty much.
Different deck, a little bit simpler.
I have a different slide deck, but this stuff will be covered. We may use both of them, but this one has 6 meaningful slides. The other one has 3 or 4, so.
I left a pair of headphones in here.
I didn't take them.
It's on Mr. Neeson's cart, which is in the other room.
I'll figure out where the room is then.
Any other questions? If I don't know the answer, I can find it quick. Okay. Hope everybody comes Monday.
Thank you all.
Okay.